The Trump administration is sending major mixed messages about whether it wants regime change in Iran. Trump posting on his social media site about 2 hours ago, quote, "It's not politically correct to use the term regime change, but if the current Iranian regime is unable to make Iran great again, why wouldn't there be a regime change?" However, top Republicans, including members of the Trump administration, were saying something else as recently as this morning. Listen.
But our view has been very clear that we don't want a regime change.
I don't like the regime, but we're not into the regime change business here. We're into the safety and security of the United States business.
We are not pursuing regime change. We're not trying to put any troops on the ground into Iran.
And joining us now is Trita Parsi, Executive Vice President of the Quincy Institute, an expert on Iranian-American relations, and the author of Losing an Enemy, Obama, Iran, and the Triumph of Diplomacy. Also with us is Houman Majd, an Iranian-American writer and an MSNBC contributor. Trita, I will start with you. What does the future of Iranian-American relations look like right now, and is diplomacy even realistically on the table?
I fear that real diplomacy, the ones that is actually used to constructively try to de-escalate, is a bit far away from us at this point. There has been a massive destruction of trust just in the last 10 or so days. At first, Trump said that he wanted to have talks last Sunday, but then apparently gave some sort of a greenish light to the Israelis to attack 2 days before the talks were supposed to take place. Then he said that he's going to take 2 weeks to figure out what his next move is, and then 2 days later, he actually attacked. So at this point, I don't think the Iranians take what he says seriously, in the sense of assuming that if he sends a positive message, they will take it at face value. I think they're going to be assuming the absolute worst. And under those circumstances, it's going to be very difficult to get real diplomacy going again.
Do you think they see that 2-week period, now looking back on it, as a ruse of some sort?
I think they viewed it as a ruse from the outset. I don't think they fell for it. I think this was something that was done to, signal some confusion. I think some of the things that has been tweeted today also does that, but I think it also shows something else. It's not just that he sends mixed messages. He is moving the goalpost. Moving the goalpost, to me, suggests more that he's actually not in control of the escalation. Bibi Netanyahu is, and Trump is actually following. I find that to be very, very worrisome, because if we take a look at what has happened over the course of the last couple of months, Trump actually started off from a very constructive position. He just said, no weaponization. That was a workable approach. It would have likely led to a deal by now, I think, if he had stuck to it. But the Israelis pushed him to adopt zero enrichment instead, which we knew from the outset was not going to work. Then they convinced him that the Israelis should go in and bomb. Then they convinced him that the United States should go in and bomb. And now it appears that they have convinced him that he needs to pursue regime change. It doesn't seem to me that Trump is in control. Netanyahu seems to be in control.
Houman, NBC News reported that the Iranians wrote Trump that they would retaliate through terror cells if this strike did occur. And so now they're put in the position of the strikes happen, and if they don't retaliate, they would not be standing with what they said. And would it possibly, is there any odds of that, basically? It is a short way of saying it. Is there any way that the Iranians will not retaliate?
I find it, unfortunately, sorry.
I doubt it very much. I mean, I don't think that it depends on what kind of retaliation. The retaliation may be not massive. It may not be them firing, missiles into American bases. It may be more continuation of trying to fight the war with Israel, really targeting that more than anything else. It might be some proxies taking it upon themselves almost without necessarily a direct command from Iran. The Houthis, for example, who do have missiles and are able to cause damage. But it depends. I think the odds of Iran absolutely doing nothing are practically zero, unless Israel were to stop and say, we're done, we're out. Trump were to say, we're done, we're out, and we want to sit with you and talk and have negotiations instead of going to war. I don't know if that would work, but I doubt that the Israelis are going to do that, and I doubt that Donald Trump is going to do that. So I think the answer to your question is no. I think there's going to be some form of retaliation.
Trita, you wrote a book about the triumph of diplomacy, referring to the diplomacy between the United States under the Obama administration and Iran. Trump, of course, pulled us out of the JCPOA in his first term. Where do you think we would be today if that decision had not been made?
That's a great question. And I think if there had not been a pullout from the deal back in 2018, I think we would be in a fundamentally different situation. The deal would have been in place for 10 years, which would have given it enough time to start actually making significant changes to Iran, including internally. Iran's economy would have opened up to the rest of the world, particularly to the West, which would mean that the West would also have leverage and influence over Iran's decisions. Now the West has zero influence, zero leverage, because it's simply not present. It's not there. I think you would have seen the Iranian middle class grow dramatically, which is the main force for democratization inside the country, far more powerful than any regime change plans that would be cooked up from the outside. So I think there's a tremendous amount that we have lost, not just in terms of non-proliferation, but also where Iran would be and where the U.S.'s relationship with Iran would be had that deal been kept in place.
Houman, is regime change possible in Iran? I mean, we've seen some reporting to suggest that Iran, the supreme leader, has made plans if, in fact, he is killed or targeted by either the Americans or the Israelis. But is regime change possible, and what might that look like?
Well, it's always possible, Eamon. It's always possible to bring about regime change, either from the outside or internally. Things could happen. I mean, you look at the Arab Spring. Nobody expected that to happen. So it is possible, and there is a lot of discontent in Iran. But there is no leader, and there is no real opposition inside Iran, and there's the opposition outside of Iran, who potentially could replace the regime, are not really competent at this point, competent enough. In the minds of the Iranian people, there isn't this whole big groundswell of support, for example, for Reza Pahlavi, the Shah's son, who fancies himself as being the next leader of Iran. So, no, I think, of course, it's possible. I'm not sure that Israel is pursuing regime change so much as either a disintegration of Iran. We've even seen reports where they've encouraged, some Israeli politicians have encouraged the Kurds, the Arabs, the Baluchis to rise up to, the separatist groups. So we could see that. We could see if there's an imposed regime change by decapitating the leadership, not just the leadership and the Ayatollah and the Islamic theocracy, but also the Revolutionary Guards and the Iranian army and navy and air force, that we could have complete chaos in Iran. So I think that it seems like the Israelis are more interested in weakening Iran to the point where it can never pose a threat to Israel or to Israeli interests. Let's put it that way. In America, I mean, Donald Trump, it's impossible to say. It's impossible to say what Donald Trump is thinking at any given time. But I mean, just throwing out that regime change would be good is, dangerous, I think, for everyone, because I think the Iranians will look at that and go, well, could that be America's main interest in Iran?
Houman Majd and Trita Parsi, thank you both. We're grateful to have your voices tonight.